Now, Café New Canadians is a virtual event series where every week we discuss topics that matter to immigrants, newcomers, international students, and anyone who wishes to move to Canada someday. Café New Canadians is brought to you by New Canadians, which is a TV and web based show. You can watch us on Omni TV. At the same time, you can, of course, check out our content on our website as well as our YouTube channel. Now, a nice way to keep connected with us would be, of course, if you follow us on social media. That's where you will find about all of these sessions as part of Café New Canadians as well that we post, and also all our content that we talk about. I'm your host, Shruti Dargan, and I'm very pleased to welcome three amazing guests who will be joining us today. We will be joined by Alma Arzate. She is the Global Director, Supply Planning, Apotex. And we have Wael Safwat, who is the Director of Procurement, North America, Black & McDonald Limited. And also Umesh Kalia, who is the Procurement Manager, Client Relations and Category Management at the City of Vaughan. Welcome to all of you. Now, of course, as we start talking to our guest about the session today, there's a quick reminder for everyone joining us that, of course, you will have questions that our guest speakers will be answering for you. So if you're joining us on Zoom, please type your questions on the Q&A tab. And if you're joining us on YouTube, where we're also live streaming this webinar, then you can type your questions in the chat box. So once again, a very warm welcome to all our guests joining us today. How's it going for you these days?
Hi, Shruti, how are you? Things are going well, as well as we can expect, being working from home for sure, trying to keep safe.
Of course. How about you, Umesh and Wael?
Yeah, same thing. I mean, this is a time of trying time, so we're trying to make the best out of whatever going on. And then same here, me and my team, everybody is working from home, trying to stay away from, following all the medical guidelines and trying to be safe and healthy.
Yeah, that's nice to hear. How about you, Wael?
Thank you for having me today. Very pleased to be healthy and safe, and I think this is most importantly nowadays, being safe and healthy.
For sure. Now we've got a lot of people joining us today, and I can see that they're from all over Canada. We've got some people joining us from India as well, and I think they've also been typing as to where they're joining us from. This session, of course, as you must have read in the topic, is Canadian immigrants impacting supply chain. We would be talking about exactly what are the skills that employers look for within the field. You will also hear from our panelists today about their own immigration experiences. They will also be highlighting the achievements of some great individuals who have achieved great success. And at the same time, we will, of course, be answering all your questions. Now, before wasting any more time, and why talk about anything else when we can just begin with talking about exactly what supply chain is. And for the uninitiated over here, Umesh, how about you shed some light on exactly what the field is like in Canada, and what can newcomers look forward to when they're either entering the industry or anyone who's looking to advance their careers within it?
Yeah. Thanks, Shruti. I'll try to chime in, and my colleagues can add further to it. So let me start by saying that although we are in a tough time, but this is an exciting time from the supply chain perspective. Even in this most uncertain and trying times, if any profession after the healthcare is getting the focus and attention every day, that's supply chain. So even if you go for the Prime Minister of Canada or the Premier of all the provinces, they're talking about how they can maintain the supply chain, whether this is PPE related or whether they are related to food supply. So it is, I would say, is one of the fastest growing industry in Canada and globally. If you simply put together in a more simple way, any organization or country in this time is not self-sufficient, and COVID has told us in a hard way. That means everybody rely on somebody. So from an organization and supply chain perspective, we need suppliers, and suppliers are usually acquired through the supply chain. So it's a very dynamic and fast moving industry. If you look back, maybe 20 years back, the function of the supply chain was more of a back office clerical function. And if you see, and today they are talking about how to become the strategic function of the supply chain, and it's becoming the critical hub for the business lines. So you don't have to go that far. I was looking at some numbers from 2018. The world trade merchandise for 2018 was $19.67 trillion. That tells you a lot. So if you try to segment those dollars to Canada and further segment that to different kind of industry, every single, whether it's manufacturing, healthcare, transportation, logistics, every single industry is being touched by the supply chain. So overall, I would say 60 to 80% of the manufacturing or any other industry, supply chain makes the most out of the costing of that product. So as far as the job profile goes, supply chain is end to end. So it could be from planning to category management, inventory control, vendor relations, like you name it. So the depth and breadth of this field is pretty far. So I would say, the people who are trying to think this through, that which field they should go for, this is one of the area where people are getting attracted to. There are all kind of roles, whether you are from the entry level to going up to the vice president, so within the supply chain. So the growth perspective, especially within Canada, over the last few years, and in the coming year, the forecasted around 65,000 jobs within the supply chain. So these are, great time from the supply chain perspective. You can enter in this field, whether it's a healthcare sector, government sector, real estate, banking, communication, to name a few.
Sure. So what I'm hearing over here is that, of course, supply chain anyway was a very important sector. And even during COVID, its importance has further got highlighted. And I mean, it's great to hear that, there are so many opportunities and people from diverse sectors can also make an entry into the profession. So moving to you, Alma, why don't you tell me about some of the top players in the field? And also, what are the core skills that you think employers look for in, say, newcomers or any job candidates, applicants?
Yeah, for sure, Shruti. So it's funny that you mentioned, because actually, I was actually interviewing a couple of candidates today. That I'm looking for a manager, by the way, manager of global supply chain analytics. So I was interviewing a couple of candidates, and just to name a couple of the skills, that I'm as a hiring manager looking for, I will say that the incumbent has to have amazing, excellent communication skills. I cannot stress that enough. The challenge is you have to, get your ideas across, right? And then if you cannot communicate properly, then you won't be able to sell those ideas and influence other people. So that's actually number one for me. And number two, maybe equally important or more important, will be your collaboration skills. I'm always looking for examples where, people show me that, of course, they can lead. We want leaders, but we also want people that can collaborate with others effectively. So I would say those are, there's a long list for sure, but those will be my top two skills that I'm looking for in someone that coming into the supply chain. The good news is, as well is maybe going to mention, is that there are a lot of transferable skills, from other professions, that if someone wants to enter into the supply chain, they can absolutely leverage.
Yeah. So, Wael, why don't you weigh in over here and tell us a little about the core skills that you think are required?
Thanks, Alma. I think she covered it all, but probably I'll put from a different perspective, and Umesh for giving us a kind of a broad understanding of the supply chain. I think typically, as a hiring manager, I'll be looking to different sets of skill sets: functional skill sets, soft skill sets, and leadership skill sets. I mean, back to Umesh, all in the day, 20 years ago, people were just focusing on the functional skill sets, the technical skill sets. Do you know how to do the job? Yes, so you are on the top of the list. But as we evolve, and particularly during the pandemic time, I mean, as Alma has indicated, that effective communication and collaboration become on the top. So that's where you can see on the second bucket, which is about the soft skills. I think emotional intelligence and self-awareness is absolutely important. Again, I like the word that Alma has indicated about, I mean, selling. To create value, you need to sell the value. So without having the ability, eventually is, I mean, articulating your skill sets, articulating your point across, it is unlikely to gain everyone. And I mean, so I think stakeholder engagement, ability really to engage people effectively, I mean, ability really to collaborate and show empathy that, you know, I'm here to help, I'm here to be part of the solution. Those are typically, I think, will put everyone on the top of the list. I think we typically, I mean, hire for attitude, we develop, I mean, for skill sets. So you hire the people who got the right attitude, I mean, to be able to create a long-standing relationship. That's in my view. And I've seen a lot of people have been able to succeed when they enter the Canadian job, or even they choose to advance their career within the Canadian jobs, based on how they have been able really to create their own brand within the organization, within the industry, within the profession.
Now, you've actually touched upon a point which partly answers the two questions that I see here in the Q&A tab. Both of you, actually all three of you, mentioned that, you know, about the top skills that are required and how is it that one can enter the field. You also said that there's scope for people outside the sector to also make an entry into the field. The two questions I see here, one from Dinesh Sharma and one from Menakant Selvaraja, who are joining us, are both about newcomers unable to actually enter the space. Now, specifically, I can ask you, they say that, you know, newcomers who are back from their home country still struggle in getting a foot into the door. What advice would you have for these professionals? And the other question is also similar, that when you're trying to connect with recruiters on LinkedIn or Glassdoor, they're not really achieving too much success. So what do you have to say about this and an advice that you have? Wael, why not just start with you?
Myself? Okay, thank you.
Yes, sure.
I think those are great questions. I think in my view, my experience, every individual who's coming to Canada and obviously just coming to the Canadian market, I mean, they need to understand they start the journey, and it's a journey. So, I mean, you need to be patient, you need to have a resilience. I think, I mean, recruiters is one of the channels, but you have to develop different channels. I mean, you can't rely on one channel. So give you an example. I mean, the third thing that people typically need to do is start really, I mean, building their own brand, connecting through LinkedIn. I think the more that people know you, the more the chance they're able to reach out to the people. So building your own brand, connect with the people. The second channel, which is in my view, I think, be aware about your competency, your skill sets. As Alma indicated earlier, I mean, the beauty of the supply chain is about having the ability to use your transferable skills from different function or from different industry. And as Umesh indicated earlier, that there is a plenty of opportunity within the supply chain in terms of demand planning, inventory management, category management, strategic sourcing, supply relation management, logistics, you name it. So you have to be clear about really identifying your skill sets and your competency. And accordingly, you have to target the right organization, the right people. I mean, I was always advising people, rather than spending your time, give an example, within 1 hour, try to send 10 resumes to 10 employers, which is unlikely one of them will get back to you. I would rather spend the same 1 hour focusing or targeting specific organization or individual where I believe my skill sets or profile could be of interest to them, and maybe sending 1 or 2 resumes where probably I'll get a higher response rather than spending. So you have to be wise in spending your time and be focused on what to target. The third aspect, and we're quietly glad to have the Supply Chain Canada and Supply Chain Ontario Association. It's absolutely the voice of the profession in Canada. It's a non-for-profit organization. It's offer a fantastic opportunity for networking, for connecting with other colleagues and peers, for eventually accessing to the resources. So I ask people extensively leverage, this library. I mean, early in the day, unlikely you'll be able to access this. Now, virtually, you can, as Alma indicated, you can land with a job virtually, you can connect with the people virtually. So that's really the fourth channel. The fifth channel, and then which is the last one, is the recruiter. typically recruiter will always be, welcome to connect with everyone. However, they can't create a job for everyone. And also, they try to find the right match. So making sure that you spread your wings and not relying on one channel. Recruiter is one channel, the supply chain association and other similar association, whether in logistics, in production planning, operation, that's another channel. Targeting the right individual and the right company, that's another channel. Building your brand across LinkedIn, that's another channel. And then applying for the job, that's another channel. So that's, in my view, how newcomer or even existing, I would say, procurement supply chain professional in the market should be able to land with the better jobs.
Wow, thank you for all of that detail. Actually, you've shared a lot of information here. Alma, being a global leader in the field, how would you add to what Wael just said about building a brand when you're maybe entering the field or advancing your career within it?
Well, already gave an honestly a very complete answer. So maybe all I will add is, you have to be a little patient, right? Things that they don't happen in a heartbeat. It's a lot about having the hard work, the perseverance, the determination, expanding those networks, as well as mentioning, is extremely important. You want to be where the hiring managers are, and you want to get known for the kind of content, that you're sharing. You have to follow, some of the thought leaders in the field, and see what kind of content they're sharing, and add your twist to it, add a comment to it, get yourself noticed, right? I have actually met a few very interesting people because I liked what they commented on my article or whatever I share. I was like, nice. I'm gonna connect with them, right? And it's kind of a way to get you noticed. It's really not possible for us to, again, create jobs when there's none. So when I do get a lot of messages on LinkedIn to say, I'm coming to Canada, I need your help, can you give me a job? That's really that's not going to take you far. I have to be honest, right? So it has to be very targeted application. Well, mention it, right? If you show me through your resume that you have the skills that I require, and I happen to have a vacancy, by all means, I actually hired one of my managers. He was already a permanent resident of Canada. He was in India, back then, and I interviewed him through Skype. I hired him sight unseen. He was still in India. And the day I met him was the first day he started at Apotex. No problem for me. He had all the skills I needed. So in my perspective, you have the right skill set and you can match the skill set with a vacancy that is already there, then you're going to have a winning combination.
Definitely. Umesh, anything that you'd like to add to that? Both Wael and Alma here have shared a lot, actually.
Yeah, I think there are some good suggestions there, good advice there. If I can, this may resonate with people. When I came to Canada, believe me, every single job possible before coming here, I applied to all of them, and I didn't get any job. Maybe it's my bad luck or whatever. Then I landed here. I was, the first thing I did is I took upon the Job Canada Bank and then applied every single job available for Supply Chain Canada. That's a wrong approach. So later on, I progressed through the learning curve, as Alma said, give some patience. Wael said resiliency. You need to try to see and fit within the culture first. That's the biggest gap. When I see the resumes, if my job position is saying that it's only for the people who are currently in Canada, it's not that we are trying to discriminate. It may be the operational reasons, that's the job requirement. I still get the applicants, they are outside of country. I would love to interview them, but there are some restrictions applicable, especially in government sector. If the position is asking for certain minimum criteria, if your job application is not meeting that, practices are very structured. So you have to see what you have to offer to that position and where is the right fit.
Umesh, I think I'm not too sure if the viewers are able to hear you too well, but I
I
think
think he got
the video
frozen.
got stuck a
Yeah.
little over here. Yeah.
Yeah.
So while we wait for him to actually be able to join us back, and he has of course given a little teaser of his journey to the viewers today. Alma, while I have you here already, why not just talk to you guys about your immigration journeys? And that I'm sure, I see a lot of questions over here, but we'll slowly come to answering those as well. And I'm sure that a lot of those will get answered through what all three of you have to share over here. So, could we hear a little about your journey first?
Okay, well, I'm gonna make a very long journey short, in the essence of time. I'm originally from Mexico, and so that's we're from Juarez, Mexico, actually in the north of Mexico, right across the border with El Paso, Texas. My husband, my son, and I were living there when things started to get worse, like worse in terms of safety and security there. So we had to move. We had to try to find another alternative for us, and in this case we love Canada was our dreamland, because they share a lot of the same values that we share also as Mexicans. So after a very long process, I would say it was 4 years back then. That was 17 years ago when I applied, and after a few more years of application processing, finally we got our permanent residency. So that's also something I will mention. When you're applying, make sure you have the right status, to apply, because when we start hiring, when we start the interview process, the first question that we ask is, are you legally authorized to work in the country, right? So that will be the first question, right? And if you're don't have the right status, then it's going to be a challenge, right? So basically, that's what happened after a long process. I was monitoring job postings, Shruti, for about 3 or 4 years. For all the time it took the processing, I was diligently, monitoring the job offerings. But more importantly, I was monitoring the skill set that the employers were requiring, and I was trying to match, with certifications or this and that, or project experience, because I say, okay, they need someone that can manage projects, so I need to get myself some experience on managing projects, so when I get to Canada, I'm job ready. So long story short, finally we're ready. We have all the paperwork, no job, of course. I was very lucky, that I applied. I was working for Johnson & Johnson Medical Devices at the time back in Mexico, and a vacancy came up in Johnson & Johnson Consumer Packaged Goods in project management. So I applied, from Mexico. I mentioned, I'm a permanent resident of Canada. I'm ready to go. Will you, entertain my candidacy? And the HR manager called me back and said, you know what, Alma, thank you for your application, but you don't meet the requirements that we're looking for. But we happen to have another, opportunity that hasn't been posted yet. So will you be interested in this other opportunity? So of course I was, I was interviewed and, offered the job. Even it was very challenging. I had to leave my 2-year-old behind, my husband behind, my son behind, for about 3 months of back and forth, and until we finally landed in Toronto. So I was very lucky. I'm going to say it very much. I was lucky I was able to come to Canada with a job. So that's what I'm saying. It's not impossible. It's very difficult. You have to have the right paperwork, but it could happen. And actually, I have made that happen for other people. So it's definitely possible.
So that only goes on to add to exactly that, as Umesh was also talking about it earlier, that the initial period could be a little challenging for people. And it's just that you have to remember to actually keep going. And like two of our panelists have shared so far with us, that, they also faced those roadblocks, but they were able to overcome those. And I'm sure,
Right.
Wael, why don't you tell us about your journey now? And there'll be lessons in there too.
My journey, was, more or less slightly the same. I put a lot of an effort in terms of planning the move to Canada. I've been quite fortunate to come before formally landed to the country, to come like around 3 or 4 years ago, just to present in the Supply Chain Association conference, which is back on the days called BMAC, which is Purchasing Management Association of Canada. So I've been trying really to bridge the gap and connect with the profession before I land. And also it's helped me really to understand the different culture, the different job requirements, etc. And connecting with the right individuals helped me really to land with a fantastic job with Loblaws. I mean, which is I've been fortunate to work there and lead the team transformations. And then I moved to Black and McDonald later on, after around, I mean, almost 3 years, more or less. But I mean, it hasn't been really something overnight, as Alma indicated, or Umesh. I mean, and it is not about really what you have, it's about what makes you different versus others. So you have to be very clear about really, I mean, selling your value proposition. You have to be clear that to reinvest again in learning and development and make sure that you align with the market needs. It's not about my title, formal title, or qualification. It's about what can I bring to the job. And I feel this is really something that helped me a lot really to land with the right job. I always keep telling people that networking is a fantastic opportunity. I mean, to Alma point earlier, even to Umesh, sometimes you connect with the right people. Some of them, they might be really busy, they were not able to get back to you. Some of them, they could give you really a genuine advice and tell you, you know what, to get a successful result, this is what you need to do, and this is where you need to focus. Some of them unlikely may not respond back to you. So I think you have always have a resilience and focus on the positive side of the journey. I mean, and again, finally, I keep telling people the same example. If you thought about it, I mean, how many people apply across the globe to be a permanent resident in Canada? I would imagine millions and millions. Regretfully, I don't have the numbers. How many of those actually land with the permanent residency? Thousands. So likewise, everyone has a different journey. You can't compare yourself with others. I mean, there have been a million people came to Canada and they have regretfully failure stories. And there have been a million people, and we have some of them around the call today, distinguished colleagues who made a fantastic and impressive career. So you always have to focus on those who have been able to progress. It's not about luck. It's about effort and consistency. And that's in my view.
Yeah, they say that the harder you work, the luckier you get, right? So meaning there's really, very little luck and more of the hard work.
100%.
For sure. There's no doubt about that. Umesh, we're happy to have you back with us. I think we lost you midway then. You did share a little about your journey. Is there anything that you'd like to add to it?
So further to what Alma and Wael said, similarly, my journey was not that easy when I immigrated. I think last when we were having some issues with technical, I was saying that there was a cultural shift. So when I landed here in Canada, I was hoping, in fact, I landed as a skilled category mechanical engineer, and I had a procurement background from India too. And I had lots of dreams. And good to have it, but those dreams need a little bit of time to make it a reality. So you need to learn the culture. You need to have a roadmap. So first thing, if I speak from my experience, my membership with Supply Chain Canada goes back to 2004. And that's the year I landed here. So the first thing I did is I researched and thought about it. And I was doing all that kind of odd jobs, general labor job, quality technician job, because I didn't expect it that because I'm a mechanical engineer, they're going to hire me as a mechanical engineer right away. So I went to the evening schools. That's where my first job landed, because I networked with the people. There were 20 people on our group, and then one of them was a supervisor in one of the companies. So I submitted my resume. They looked at my resume and said, this is no good, because you certainly not putting forward your best foot. So that's the difference. You got to learn the culture and see. When I see the resumes, people are saying they have great communication skill, but yet there are so many grammatical mistakes in the resume. So am I going to spend, believe me, as a recruiter, that's the last thing I want, to reject a potential candidate. Our job is to get the position filled as soon as possible so that we can go on with our regular day-to-day job function. So have some patience. Once you have a roadmap, try to follow through it, and do not get a detour by way of having the road bumps. Road bumps are there. Try to learn the lessons from that, and then invest some time in your learning and development. Give some time to this country. I mean, if I speak from my experience, I gave, say, 25 years to my own country. After that, and having all the education and all that stuff, I started at a very entry level position in India. So when I came here, I have to give a little bit back to this country and profession, try to see where are the gaps, and then work progressively towards filling in those gaps. As long as you have something to offer, and Alma emphasize on this, there are a lot of transferable skills. Try to focus on your transferable skills and try to present it in a more value add manner, rather than I'm least interested in talking about what you have done, what you can offer to the employer, because at the end of the day, value add is the function which as a hiring manager I look for. My journey is full of road bump and great successes too. I've worked in 3 different ministries in Ontario. I've worked in one of the biggest university in Ontario, and still up to date. I'm enrolled. I'm studying. I'm doing and trying to see where I can take this profession to the next level, giving back to the community. It may sound funny. I get some of the calls from the people say, hey, we have nobody in Canada. Can you guide us? I have offered them help. I go and pick them from an airport. That kind of help, like you gotta share this thing. If you have something to offer, connect, make some network, and show some patience. That's all I can recommend.
And be ready to make some sacrifices, right, Umesh? Because maybe something that I was going through my journey very quickly, but something I probably left outside of this conversation, but I'm gonna bring up is when I was in Mexico, I was already a people leader. I was already a supply chain manager, and I had a team of 30 people reporting to me. When I came to Canada, I had to take a step back career-wise and take a job as an individual contributor project manager. Was it a setback in my career? Perhaps. So people might look at it like that, but it was the job that brought me to Canada. So I was not going to pick any fights. I was not going to, look at this gift, and say, well, it's not at the level I had, so I'm going to pass. Actually, I was very pleased and very happy and very thankful that I ended up with a job, and I had the backing of a company like Johnson & Johnson moving me here. But then you start working hard, you start persevering, you start showing results, you start shining, and not letting anything hold you back. You integrate yourself into the Canadian culture, you learn how to work with people in a different, a bit of a different, culturally, it's a little different. You're going to find that there's definitely some differences, but, if you're willing, to sacrifice, you're willing to work hard, then, you get back on track. A few years after joining J&J, I was promoted back again to manager, then senior manager, now director at Apotex for 8 years, so definitely the hard work, it has paid off, but it could have been no loss if I would have said, well, no, I don't want to take a step back in my career because I want the same level I had, right? So sometimes you have to be willing to sacrifice.
For sure. And, all 3 of you actually pointed out some great things. But what I also heard was the fact that it's not just about hard work, but also having the right skills. Another thing that plays a role is maybe the right certification. And, of course, people who have been in the supply chain industry, even in other countries, they do, of course, stand a chance to get into the industry here in Canada. But a lot of others from different fields trying to get in here as well. And certification seems to be a hot concern in the Q&A tab here as well. So why not quickly just answer a few certification related questions, and then we'll move on to a lot more during the session. So I see a question here about from Meenakant and again from Praveen. They're asking if certifications like APICS, CSCP will be helpful, and for someone who has been a certified professional in supply management, what certification would be nice for them to be able to get into the field here?
Oh, definitely the certifications help, right? Like when I see a resume, the certification is a global standard or a professional standard, right? So it tells me that this person was able to absorb the knowledge and then express that, demonstrate that knowledge through an exam or a series of exams. It shows that this person is willing to invest in his or her professional development, and that has a common skill set and common knowledge base that is going to help him or her be successful, in the job. So definitely, there's many certifications out there. I'm certified, like I have 3 or 4 certifications. Got to keep track. That the most valuable ones for me obviously have been for Supply Chain Canada, CSCMP, APICS, CPIM or CCP, and from PMI, Project Management Professional, PMP, and I'm also certified purchasing manager. But all again, I don't want to see a certification for the sake of having a certification. It has to, that knowledge that you're acquiring has to be applicable to your job. It's not just to check a box. When I have gotten my certifications is because I had a business need that actually asked me to upgrade my skill set. So when I moved to Canada, I was managing projects as a full-time job. That's something that I have never done before. After about a year and a half, I said, I have to upgrade my skill set. I have to, up my game, right? So I went and got my PMP certification, the Project Management Professional from PMI. So definitely something that if you can show that you went for a certification and then you apply that knowledge and then you show me the results of how you apply the knowledge with some success, that's a winning combination in my books.
Wael, I'll come to you about another hot topic here in the discussion that I see. That is Canadian experience. Now, I'd like to, of course, highlight that all 3 of you touched upon the initial struggles that a newcomer might have in Canada when they're trying to find success in their careers. But even with experience, or with someone who has experience, but they're trying to apply for roles that require just about a year or 2 of experience, and they're pretty sure that they're actually qualified, fit all the requirements, but still if they're not being able to make it because of Canadian experience, what would you have to add to that?
I personally have a very, very, very strong views about regards to the Canadian experience. Maybe a lot of people may agree or disagree with my statement. I don't believe with what's called Canadian or British or Egyptian or Mexican or Indian experience. There's nothing called a particular country experience. It's about an experience. If you've been able to perform and succeed in your back home country, you're certainly able to perform and succeed in any other part of the world. So that's really my personal statement. The idea here is where to sell your value proposition. And that's really the whole thing. And I just always keep telling people this kind of an example. I mean, you've got a diamond and you've got a piece of glass. If you take the diamond and go to a glass shop, you will understand the value. If you take the diamond and you go to the jewelry shop, immediately they value how the diamond is precious. So everyone has to understand where they sell their value and be mindful that some people will help you through the journey, some people against you. Again, it's about resilience. When you target a particular job, you might find some people are very welcoming, are open, willing to consider international immigrant or etc. You may come across other people who are not interested. And certainly this shouldn't take you back really as a road bump. You have to carry forward. So it's always been focused. And I will build earlier on what Alma had mentioned, and also Umesh as well, about the certification and the thing. Be smart in terms of understanding and do your homework. See more the typical jobs on the market. Try to understand the common requirements. Some of those requirements could be culturally driven. I mean, i.e., the ability to communicate, the ability to engage with people, the ability to collaborate. Technical skill always needed, but this is coming second in place. But the first one, if tomorrow we offer a job, will you be able to be part of a good team? Will you be able really to help us to move forward? That's typically the hiring manager is looking for. So the idea here is try to focus and try to understand what are the requirements in the particular job market and align your effort into this. If you see that particular certificate become a demand in the market, this is where I need to put my effort. To Alma's point, there has been enormous amount of certificate. All of them are very valuable without disrespect to anyone. But what makes sense to you? What will help you to land the job? If I'm really targeting a supply chain in terms of logistics, or I would say inventory management or demand planning, I would rather focus on particular certification that address those skill sets. If I'm more focusing on strategic sourcing procurement, there are different certification. The idea here is that those who have been successful in their journey, they have been able to be always focused in targeting. And Umesh share a fantastic way, example. You can spend all the day applying for job Canada bank or whatever, right and left. Unlikely, no one will get back to you. But if you're very focused that out of those 100 jobs, maybe one or two, which I believe is relevant to me, and accordingly start putting some effort in reviewing my resume, put it in the right way that tend to be attractive to the hiring manager, build some skill sets that support me. I would rather see more results going through this way.
Now, let's also move on to another initiative that I really wanted to talk about over here. And all the questions that we've answered so far and others that I see over here, in case we're not able to answer your questions live over here, we'll make sure that we compile these, share them with our guest speakers, and get you the answers that you need in our communication post the webinar as well. Now, I'd like to, of course, talk about Supply Chain Canada's initiative, which is Canadian Immigrants Impacting Supply Chain. I talk about it also because you guys are all leaders within the field, and you've been doing so much to uplift the others, help the others, empower them. So, Alma, I'll come to you for this. Why don't you tell us a little about the initiative and the lovely individuals who you've honored, who are achievers in the field?
Yes, for sure. So I remember distinctly, Christian Bouguier, the president and CEO of Supply Chain Canada, gave me a call late last year. And he said, Alma, I have an idea. What about recognizing distinguished, immigrants that are impacting Canadian supply chain? And to be honest, I couldn't be more excited. I was really excited because I said, oh my, we have so much talent within the supply chain, so many people that we can honor. And I was even more excited when he said, well, what about you sharing the committee, to the selection committee, so you can help select, those immigrants. So again, I was thrilled, so this is where everything started, late last year. And we look far and wide across Canada. I was very pleased that both Wael and Umesh ended up in the National Selection Committee along with me. The three of us, along with other leaders within the supply chain, ended up having the top job of selecting and picking the right, the profiles to highlight. It's really an honor. We have never had this list published before here in Canada. I think it recognizes the value that the Canadian immigrants bring to the workforce. And it's basically helping raise the profiles of many individuals from many different levels. Not all of them are at a leadership level, but they're people, as we see here on the screen, there are people that are entrepreneurs, there are people that are owners of their own company, there are people that are leaders in their field, and they're leading the way. They're definitely very distinguished people. We ended up picking from 7 different provinces and 20 different countries around the world were represented in this list. So definitely it was an honor. It was definitely a pleasure, for me, and I'm sure for Umesh and Wael to be part of this initiative and help put the spotlight, on all the value, that these leaders are adding to the Canadian supply chains every single day. So I think if we go to the next slide, we have a couple of highlights here. So so for example, I was Ladan Rafi. She's a peer of mine. She also works at Apotex, and as you can see from her background and her profile, very, very distinguished career in the supply chain. But she is also very modest, she was so surprised, that she was given this award. And I think most of the nominees and awardees acted the same. They were very shocked, very surprised, and very honored. So just to highlight, Ladana's, I don't know, one of my peers that I was honestly so happy, so thrilled to uplift and put the spotlight on her.
Yeah. Well, you also wanted to talk about someone who is an achiever over here. Would you want to?
Yes, of course. I mean, again, it's been extremely privileged and an honor to be part of this selection committee. And thanks, Alma. She's done a fantastic job as the chair of the committee, along with my distinguished colleague, Umesh, and a number of industry leaders. It has been overwhelming because the quality of the applications and I would say the skill sets and competency of all the leaders were phenomenal. And we would have loved to offer this award for everyone. But it has been absolutely something that we've been very pleased to see the amount and the quality of the talents within the supply chain. Very, very fortunate again and privileged to have Mohammed Al Haj as part of the corporate procurement leadership team within Black and McDonald within our organizations. Apart from Mohammed, 20 years of international experience and of course, I mean, his educational background as a mechanical engineer, he got a master's degree, etc. But in my view, Mohammed has been extremely a value added not to the organization but also for the supply chain industry for three reasons. Number one, he's been absolutely successful in navigating the culture and earning the respect of his colleague, peer, clients, and stakeholders. The second element, which is I was always impressed by Mohammed, he tended always to use his transferable skills in realigning his effort and try to bring value and try to see where are the most complex challenges and try really to really have hands on deck, try to solve some of those and even take the lead. And the third one, which is always really impressed me from Muhammad, is he has been always very keen and extending hand to mentor and coach a number of his colleagues, even those outside of the organization, to let them progress in the supply chain. So truly, he set up a great example really for all of us really in terms of, culture, integration, in terms of transferable skills and value creation, and the ability to continue help other people and giving back. So I really congratulate him personally and everyone within the team for supporting him to reach to this stage.
Umesh, you're also part of this national selection committee that honored the achievers. Could we hear a little from you about Shazia that we see on the screen?
Yeah, for sure. Before I get into it, about talking about some of the skills and other offering for Shazia, like Alma and Wael, I felt honored and privileged to be part of this great initiative as well. Likewise, Alma's Christian, our president of supply chain, reached out to me asking, and it's kind of a different approach. He asked me about my immigration journey. So I thought, and he connected through LinkedIn. I thought, look, a president is asking, so I have to be true. So I explained my journey, and he said, it's quite inspiring. Would you welcome the opportunity to sit on the committee based upon the background and being immigrant myself? Right away, I said yes, although I can resonate what an immigrant would feel if an award comes their way. It makes a huge difference. But more importantly, I wanted to live their dream or my dream through their journey, because I was reading through all the nomination and I felt so emotionally attached to it. Of course, working with Alma, being the chair, Wael, and other members, it was a great learning opportunity for me. Now, talking about Shazia, just a disclaimer, Shazia is my wife. Not that just because she's not getting the award because of that. She gets a different award for that. As part of the
honestly, Umesh didn't even vote, so he had to recuse himself from the voting. So the other
Yes.
8 members, we had to say yes or no to Shazia, and honestly, she stood on her own. She didn't need any help.
Yeah, so that's why, for the full disclosure, being working in a government, conflict of interest and disclosure is the top priority. I, especially given the relationship, I honestly felt that she is the candidate who is meeting the criteria. That's the one thing. You have a pre-established criteria. There is a committee, and I excuse myself from the voting. It's purely based upon what she has to offer and how she progressed through the journey. What inspired me about her is how she transitioned from the private sector experience to going into the government sector, how she is she has invested both in the banking field. She got all the banking designation. She was not able to find a job in the banking sector. She did the start over and having the designations in the supply chain and stay focused, giving back to the community, being a green leader, and sustainable procurement initiatives. She does a mentorship for the new immigrants to give back to the community. She has a passion for the public service, and that's what her life revolves around, giving back to the community, whether it's through the mentorship, whether it's through her day-to-day job of being a public servant, impacting the lives of city residents and how we are shaping the whole city as an infrastructure. So that was some of the highlights. And honestly, I felt every single individual whose nomination came through has a story which basically touched on their challenges and how they impact. So it would be injustice if we say that these are the only three getting the limelight. Every single one who got the award is well deserved and based upon the pre-established criteria. And we had some good and some tough discussions also, because the choice was not easy. We had a very good pool of candidates.
Thank you for sharing that. And of course, big congratulations, not just to the three individuals we highlighted in today's session, but all the others who, of course, have won this honor as well. Now, with a few minutes left before we conclude, I'd like to, of course, talk about this phase, the pandemic phase that we're all faced with. I'm so sorry. I think there's something wrong with the lighting over here at my end. So please bear with that. The one thing that I'd want to, of course, highlight is now when we began the session, you spoke about the challenges, despite the challenges that COVID, has forced upon us and everything that we're having to face. Supply chain as an industry has been doing well. But are there any challenges otherwise that were faced? Alma, I'll ask you about that.
Yeah, of course, like being in the middle of a global pandemic, and having a lot of people looking for jobs, I'm going to volunteer that, there are a lot of resources to help you, at free or basically very small cost. I'm just going to highlight, we have a lot of events in Supply Chain Canada that you can join for free. There's a lot of resources that you can use. And we're happy to leverage all the skills that we can. Like we're looking for all these immigrants that are arriving to Canada. We're happy to offer opportunities. I don't believe in Canadian experience. Like it being a requirement. I actually, in all the time I've been here, I don't think I have ever heard anyone said, well, like if you don't have the Canadian experience, then we're not even going to interview you, right? As I said, I have hired people sight unseen, so with basically no Canadian experience. So definitely it's challenging. We're in the middle of the pandemic, but virtually it does give us a lot of advantages, right? So we can still attend networking events, and upgrade ourselves and our skill set. So I will say that try to find any opportunity that you can, so we can, so you can continue to make progress, even, through all the challenges that COVID-19 has brought to us. I'm still hiring people every single day. We still need people in the supply chain. We still need talented people like a lot of you, in the supply chain. So by all means, continue to persevere. Don't give up. Keep knocking at doors. And I assure you, doors are going to open.
Sure. Thank you for sharing that. Let's try and answer a few questions in the next 2-3 minutes. I'll pose one to you, Alma, while I speak to you over here. A question is that, what will Will this be an annual initiative from Supply Chain Canada? Is what Mohammed wants to know.
If it's going to be an ongoing initiative?
Yes.
Well, I have to say that getting to know Christian Bouguer, it has been an honor, but he's very innovative. He's a thought leader in the field. So he's always coming up with new things. So last year it was the 100 most influential women in Canadian supply chain. That's how I met him. I was the recipient of that award, which honestly opened so many doors for me to start giving back to the supply chain community. This year was Canadian immigrants impacting supply chain. Who knows what's going to happen next year? Again, the way his brain works, I couldn't tell you if he's going to go with like, let's do a repeat of that or something brand new. So I don't know, Mohammed. We have to keep an eye on it.
And another question, Wael, how about you take this? So we spoke about certifications. There's a specific one over here that I see, which is about someone who's a student, and they say that they're currently a student studying for their masters in global management in Canada, and have a micro masters in supply chain management. So is that something that is valued in Canada, masters?
Of course, as I said, Canada is always known really, for higher education and quality of those. Any of those master's degrees, 100% will be massively in demand. It just, again, the point is just, understanding which organization or company operating on those fields and targeting those. So, selling your value proposition in the right place. So, absolutely, I would say that he might be in demand. In fact, he could be really headhunted for some of the jobs if he aligned himself and tried to target the right organization who require such a skill sets or such a knowledge.
Umesh, over to you now. One question for you as well. This is related to government jobs. Someone wants to know, Jigesh, who's joining us, wants to know if the CSCMP certification will give them an edge to land a job in the area of procurement, or what entry-level job to focus will help.
Yeah, definitely for the government sector, as I said, there are certain minimum requirement, and those are legislative requirement for our purchasing bylaws. That minimum qualification has to have some kind of certification, and SCMP is one of the certification option given in the job description. So definitely having that requirement is an advantage. It would definitely help. And what kind of job level? I would say my suggestion, and honestly, do not go for the titles. Look for a perfect match. If you have something to offer, and I see it seems like a broken record here, cannot emphasize more what you have to offer to that position. That is what I'm looking for. At the end of the day, you can have a 5-pager resume and a 2-pager cover letter, which does not tell me, and I struggle to find what you have to offer. You may have a lot of other stuff, but that may not be a perfect match to the position. So if you are looking for a government sector jobs, first try to see the minimum criteria, because as I said, we use ATS systems. Those are structured questions. If you answer no to any of those, it would not be possible for the hiring manager to even see your application. So if you meet those criteria, then it comes to the perfect match. And honestly, depend upon the pool of candidates. Sometimes we get a really good pool of candidates, then perhaps having somebody with say 10 years of experience in Canada, and although you are equally qualified, but when we are comparing who is the perfect match for that position, you may not get an interview call. I would say do not get discouraged. Do a follow-up, and if you get an interview and still do not get a job, it amazes me not many people follow up for a debriefing call. Do get a debriefing call. It tells you what went right, what worked, what didn't work, and where were the gaps. That prepares you for the next one. I have gone for interviews, always ask for a debriefing. It tells me on if I'm looking from my own lens, I did everything perfect. When I hear from the hiring manager perspective, certainly I had blind spots. And when somebody shows you those blind spots, it makes you strong. It makes you work on some of the skill gap. And then next time around, you're better prepared.
Definitely. That's a great answer. And of course, wonderful tips that all three of you have shared with us today. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm so sorry if we weren't able to answer some of the questions that I still see here. And as promised, we will get back to you with these answers in the post communication after the webinar as well. On your screens, you might be able to now see the resources. Sorry, we will be, of course, sharing those with you, but you will be able to see how is it that you can, read more about Supply Chain Canada and, of course, the initiative that we spoke about. Like today, we do keep organizing Café New Canadian sessions every week, so please watch out for the next one and connect with us on social media to also stay updated about the news and our sessions. Also, please subscribe to our newsletter. With that, every month you get access to the content that we share. And another announcement for you is that we have recently launched our Facebook group, which is called New Canadians Connect. We would welcome all of you joining us today to, of course, become a part of that community. And we will be continuing this conversation about supply chain that we had right now. And I welcome not just the participants, but our guest speakers as well to join us on our Facebook group tomorrow, wherein we'll be answering all questions that people have and continue this discussion.
Yeah, Shruti, I wanted to wrap this up session. This is a great session, so thanks for having us, and thanks to Alma and Wael joining me on this session. It was a great initiative. I welcome everybody who wants to connect with me on LinkedIn. Please do connect. Do not ask me that, give me a job. Certainly, if you have some job positions where you need some guidance and if you need some help, definitely I'm here to guide you in whatever capacity we can. Try to be more professional when you're connecting with people, especially when you're sending the LinkedIn request. Cold calls, I definitely do not appreciate that. You wanted to show what is the linkage, why are you connecting with that person, and do respect their time. I have received some networking connection requests, and the first thing they say, can you tell me which field or which designation in Canada is helpful? And they are in Canada for like 10 years. So it tells me that you have not invested even 5 minutes. If you go on Google and spend like 2 minutes, you would know what is the organization in Canada exists. Not to disrespect anybody, but you got to respect the networking power. So there's a lot of power there in the networking. Try to use it wisely as the money in the bank. I welcome everybody to connect with me on LinkedIn, and then I can do whatever possible in my capacity to help out.
Yes, don't give up. Persevere. Doors are gonna open for you for sure. So believe in yourself, and those doors are going to start opening. So just keep going at it.
Absolutely. And just always remember, what goes around comes around. For those who help you within your journey, also once you land with the job, make sure that you give back and help others through the journey.
With that, of course, the wonderful tips and these lovely messages and advice that we have left the viewers with in the end. With that, we wrap the session. But before the participants leave us, on your screens, you can see that there's a survey. Right after you end the meeting, you will be able to see a survey that we would like for you to fill. And that'll help us perform better the next time, come and help you with all the answers that you need. Once again, thank you so much for joining us today, to the speakers, to the participants. Thank you.